Good evening. My name is Jamie Rogers. I work at Darwin Recruitment as a specialized PHP and front-end recruiter in Germany. And this evening, we're hosting a Google Hangout call with Viorel Sfetea to talk about teaching kids to code. So maybe you guys watching this will find some inspiration from Viorel's story. You might learn how you could be teaching kids to code. So Viorel is a Romanian guy. He's now living in Bonn in Germany, and he's a co-organizer and one of the, I guess, founding members of CoderDojo in Bucharest. So for people who don't know anything about CoderDojo in Bucharest, this is something that Viorel was involved in from 2011 until about 2015. At the start, they were teaching maybe 30 or 40 kids how to write code. And by now, they've helped coach around 300 children in Bucharest. So this evening, Viorel is going to share with us some of his stories, some of the things that he's done to teach kids. And he has a presentation prepared for everyone to watch. So I'm going to stop talking now, Viorel, and I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, thank you. So as Jamie was saying, I'm Viorel. It's nice to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, Jamie. Well, yeah, I guess there's not much more to say. You're saying I'm living in Bonn, Germany. Now, I'm a PHP developer, so your area of specialization. And I guess I'll just start the presentation. Yeah, I'll share my screen. Cool. So, this is a small summary. The presentation is split into 6 parts. I'm trying to cover why teaching kids how to code is important for the kids, but also for the developers that are doing them. That are doing this. It's, I think, something that's more than mutually beneficial to all parties involved. And as you guessed, I'm talking to a target audience that consists of developers, so actual professionals that do programming or programming related other programming related jobs, and why I think they should work with children, why I think they should do this knowledge sharing, especially to small kids, which it's different. Yeah, it's different than doing it with your colleagues, or I don't know, other peers that are close to your age. The last part of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about what tools, programming languages, board games especially, that I've tested along the years, and I think they give good results when working with kids, and how you could get involved if this is something that motivates you. This is something that you'd like to do. It if you think about it and say, okay, this is something that definitely calls to me. I'll have a small part about how you could start your own programming club for children. So digging right in. Okay, I'm Viorel. I'm 30. I'm living in Bonn, and as Jamie was saying, from 2011 until 2015, I've at the start helped organize and then took full ownership of the first CoderDojo club in Bucharest, Romania. Actually, the first one in Romania overall. I think there are about 20 or more or less right now, but this was the first one. And I will be talking about CoderDojo a little bit in the next few minutes. So there's a little bit more context. But the bottom line is I organized and taught a programming club for children for 4 years, and I think I learned a lot of stuff. And I just want to present these benefits that I found both for the children and for me personally, and for the people I worked with. So about CoderDojo. CoderDojo is an international movement. It started in Dublin in about 2011, 2010, 2011. I don't remember exactly. And it's basically an informal space for children to come and learn the basics of programming. Not talking about algorithmics, complicated computer science stuff, but at first just the basics of programming. It's aimed for children from small ages. It depends on the implementation, and it can go to children for about 15, 16 years old. The idea was to have actual professionals, people working in IT, that can come and they can do this knowledge sharing based on their experience, teach the kids how to code, and basically offer them a perspective of this whole field. In Romania, I'm sorry, a little bit more context about CoderDojo. It's something they call an open source concept. They have the bottom line concept, what a dojo is, how it should be organized, what's cool about it, what's not cool about it, and everybody from all over the world, it doesn't matter if you're in Europe, if you're in America, if you're in Africa, anybody can start a programming club. And the programming club, it's actually it's pretty simple. You need to have a place where you can meet with the children. You need to have volunteers that can teach the children, at least one volunteer, of course, to teach the children how to program, and then you just need to stick to it. So it's pretty easy. Once you have a space to meet with the children, once you have someone to teach them, you can do a programming a CoderDojo club, and you have all the prerequisites for it. Back to the Bucharest Dojo. Across the years from 2011 to 2015, I worked with about 300 kids, more or less. I actually didn't do an exact count. And I've worked with children from all kinds of social environments. For example, we've had children there that never touched a keyboard before, and in about a year and a half, they were already writing their own programs, their own small games. Nothing complicated, of course, but imagine in one and a half years going from not touching a keyboard, barely being able to write, to independently writing their own programs. We've had as another example, we've had one kid that had the Asperger syndrome, he was really passionate about computers, and he found in CoderDojo a medium in which to express himself and interact with other children that came there because they were sharing a passion. His mother was telling us he has difficulty interacting with other children because they're not sharing the same passions, and he prefers interacting with adults because of that. And once he started attending the dojo, and he did that for several years successfully, we think he really integrated the good, and he was happy. So it's a good outcome. We've had children that after they started doing attending the dojos, they've published their own games in the various mobile app stores, and they were quite successful, I think. And also children that started experimenting with hardware, even though that wasn't our main point of interest there. They started experimenting with hardware. They would do stuff at home, and then they would come ask everybody for feedback, what they could implement, what went wrong, how could they do it better, so on and so forth. After working with about 300 children, I think I can more or less safely say that 3 or 4 are probably going to be developers. And to be a little bit more exact, that's a little bit less than 1% of the children we've worked with. And I honestly think 1% is a really good outcome. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome because I'm thinking of this as children that would have otherwise maybe not followed a computer science career. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten into the field, they wouldn't have seen they're passionate about it, and maybe they would have chosen otherwise if not. And I think there's a question that arises from this. What about the other 99% of the children? If they wasted their time attending the dojo or not, and if they also benefited, and I think the answer is the answer is a big yes. And I want to get into detail about that. And that I think is the first chapter and on why should we teach the kids how to code. So getting back to statistics, why should we teach kids how to code? Why should we teach the 1% that are probably going to follow a career, and why should we teach the other 99% of children? Because I think every child should learn how to code, to program, to code. And I think the first reason is that, yeah, coding more or less is going to, if not at the present time, but in the near future, at least coding is going to be present and might make any job, a little bit easier. And I have, I think, two anecdotes about that. I remember a few years ago, my wife, she works in PR. The company she was working at the time, they were going through, I think, a communication crisis, and they had a lot of people that were commenting on their website on Facebook. They were commenting on Facebook, and they would have like 300, 400, 500 comments every post they made. And my wife's task back then was to get every comment from Facebook, put it into an Excel file, get the name, the comment, the date, the number of likes, and the number of replies, and then do how's that called? A sentiment analysis. See if the comment that the user posted was a negative, or was neutral, or was positive toward the company. This was something that they did every day. And they helped them. It was something that would help them manage the crisis better, knowing which way they should communicate. So this would take, sorry, I remember, 2 or 3 hours each day for my wife to do that. She would take, she would have to copy paste every comment from Facebook to Excel. And while she was doing that, she was thinking, I wonder if there's a better way of doing that. And she knew that Facebook has an API. She knew that through that API, you could automatically get all the comments from a post. You could list all the posts, get all the comments, and all the relevant information for her, the date, the likes, all the other stuff. And she was like, I wonder if there's a way I could automate this. And of course, that led her to the natural thing. She came home and made me do a script for her that did that. And it took me 2 hours. And using that script, I think she saved tens of hours of work, because the crisis went for a long time. And instead of spending 2 or 3 hours every day, she just ran the script once. It took 5 minutes, and the Excel was done absolutely immediately. So just an emphasis, she worked in PR and communication. Then she had nothing to do with programming, coding, but this process automation helped her do her job faster, first of all, and better, second of all. Of course, there was no automated sentiment analysis, because Romanian is quite a peculiar language. You could have triple negation in in Romanian, and let's just say that computational linguistics are not something you want to go into in Romanian. And I was thinking of another example. I was at an auto shop one time getting my tires changed on my car, and once the mechanic was done with changing the tires, he went to a computer screen, and I swear he pressed for a minute and a half. He pressed tab to go through all the fields that he didn't need to fill in, and then he just put just put my values there. Like I changed 4 wheels, I washed the other tires, and so on and so forth. And it was these 2 long minutes in which he was tapping the tab key there, and I kept staring at him. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if the guy could write a script that would automate this? He would have a few profiles, like people that change 4 tires on their car, people that change 6, maybe they can have a tank or something, and so on. And he would just double click on a profile, and there would be a small script that did an autocomplete based on some predefined values, and he would be happier. He would be able to, I think, maybe at the end of the day, if he doesn't have to type a lot of stuff, maybe he can do one more. He can change one more set of tires. Maybe he would have time to change one more set of tires, or maybe he can go earlier home to his family. So these were just 2 examples, 2 random examples, 2 anecdotes I ran into about how coding could help someone do their job better, even if the field is totally not IT related, not something you would usually expect to need programming. And I think we can extrapolate this, and we can talk about other fields like medical, of course, in which I think I've read about doctors who have learned how to program, how to code different applications, and they did some really cool stuff. There was an example, I think, about a year ago. I don't remember the specifics exactly, but I think there was a doctor, and they had a problem with how much concentrate of saline solution to give to patients that had severe burns or something similar. And the formula was really complicated, and the doctor would have to always go to a whiteboard and do the calculations, and then someone would have to come and check the calculations, so they would get the exact amount perfectly. So this guy, who wasn't a programmer, he wrote this mobile application that helped with this. So I think I hope I had the specifics. I have the specifics right. I think I thought that was an amazing example. It wasn't anything complicated. The design was pretty bare, but the app did exactly what it needed. They inputted the weight of the patient, the severity of the burns, and then the application in a few seconds would calculate based on the formula, and everybody would be 100% sure that what was calculated was the exact value that needed to be used. So, apart from that, this is something that happens in the future. So I think they're being shown about programming. They're being taught that, hey, here's something you can do. You don't need to follow a career in IT, but just remember, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, if you get stuck, just stop and think about it. Could I do some coding that could help me do my job better, faster, more precisely? And yeah, then just, I don't know, Google or whatever search engine will be then. Google some ideas and see if you can put it into practice. Another reason, which I think this is actually on top of my list, even if it's second in my presentation, that it helps kids develop logical thinking. And I like to do comparison. I think an analogy here. between writing a hello world program and I don't know, heating some water in using a microwave. And if you can imagine, you don't know anything about, let's say, PHP, and then you don't know anything about using your microwave. And if you come to think about it, the processes are basically the same. You have a problem you want to solve, and you have a tool you want to use. You figure out you need to use this tool, and then there is a manual or documentation that you can read to figure out how to go about it. So let's say in PHP you have this problem, this premise. You want the problem you want to fix. You want to show something on your screen. You want to say hello world on your screen. So you would go on the documentation, the manual for PHP, and then you would say, you'd ask how do I print, and you'd start a section, print text, and then you'd have specific instructions. Step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 profit. Also for using your microwave, you want to heat your water. This is the problem you want to solve. You have your tool, your microwave, and you have a manual for it. Then you just open the manual and you go to the chapter. I'm assuming there's a chapter about heating water in the microwave, and then you would just read the steps you need to follow, and then you would go about heating your water. So I think if we inspire children to go to attack problems in a certain way, thinking, okay, I have a problem. Let's assume it's small. I have a problem. I have a small problem. I need to find a tool to fix it, and I need to figure out how the tool works, and then from now on I can use that tool to solve that problem. And I think this applies into day-to-day situations. This was just an easy example with the microwave heating water. And also, apart from the logical thinking, I think then have them, like I was saying, these problem solving skills. And I want to take the example with the microwave and with the PHP script further, and think about what happens if you have a bug in your code. What happens if your PHP program doesn't print that hello world, right? What happens if you started your microwave and then 1 minute later nothing happened? And you'd have to debug. Of course, you debug your PHP script. You'd see, first of all, is there an error in my PHP script? Okay, there's no error. That means I haven't used the instructions correctly. You'd go back to the manual and see, and then the manual would have possibly, or then you would Google your problem and you would see that there are some troubleshooting steps that you can take to see why your problem didn't work correctly. I don't know, maybe you forgot to start your web server that runs the PHP code, or for the microwave stuff, maybe you forgot to plug it in, or the watts were, you had too little watts for your microwave, so we didn't correctly heat the water. But what I'm getting at is that basically there are the same steps to debugging a problem, to debug a program, and they apply to the same steps that apply to day-to-day situations where something doesn't work and you need to fix something. You need to figure out what went wrong, what did wrong. Maybe you didn't read the manual correctly, and then you learn how to better read manuals. And yeah, I'm just making a parallel between why writing codes for a few years can help you acquire much needed skills in life, in your future. A second. The third reason, the fourth reason, yeah. The fourth reason I think people should start or attend programming clubs, and why they should roll up their sleeves and go there and help children learn programming, is that you can give them the experience you wished you had in school. So maybe if you sat in class one time and you dreaded how slow the time was flowing, and you just wanted to get out of there, and maybe you stopped and you thought about why did that happen, what was wrong, what did the teacher do, why I didn't like the teacher, was it the teacher, was it what he was teaching me, maybe I didn't like maths or drawing or whatever class you are taking, and maybe you want to have a shot at that. You think you can make it better, you can do it better, and you can give the children a better experience in learning. So, and this is something that we at CoderDojo try to pursue. There's a concept called deschooling, and it's more about taking the teaching out of learning. So I think teaching is not learning. We are not here to have a monologue. There's not one guy that goes in front of a classroom and has a monologue about stuff you should write down, and then you have a homework, and then you go home, you do your homework, you memorize a series of concepts, and then you come back and the teacher checks the homework and so on and so forth. And it means, so teaching is not learning, and it it has an emphasis that grade advancement does not mean education, and that the diploma doesn't mean competence. This is the concept of deschooling. So, and we did this at CoderDojo basically by having one volunteer work with 4, 5, 6 children, and they were basically peer level. So the volunteer was a professional. He was like 20 years older than the kids, but they were talking. They were equals in the classroom. Everybody called themselves by their first name. There wasn't any hand raising when something was wrong. You just have a normal conversation saying, "Hey, here's my program. This is what I tried. This is what's happening. Could you advise me on what's happening, on what I did wrong or what I did well, or how should I develop it further?" And maybe they didn't understand the concept, because we would explain a series of concepts throughout the hours, and afterwards we would do some programs, or they would have some free reign about how to implement those concepts, and they would have some questions saying, "I didn't understand that." So it was always a dialogue. If they didn't understand something, they would just go ask someone, like they were their friend, and and then the volunteers would explain everything again. And also from the schooling concept is we always try to give a meaning to what they were learning there. I think we were saying, okay, learn this because it will help you in the future with that. So I have another example from a kid. He was really bright. He's really bright, and he was learning prime numbers in school at the time. And he came and he asked us about doing a small function that calculates prime numbers. We thought it was a little odd at the time, but we didn't question too much. Just to figure it out, that he later went home, he wrote a small program in JavaScript that calculates if a number is prime or not, and then he used it to solve about 35 problems he had from school, which were supposed to take, I think, about 5 hours. It was estimated. It was a holiday, and the winter holiday, and it was supposed to take about 5 hours. And he spent half an hour doing the program, and then another 15 minutes to solve every other problem. And then and then he went to his parents and he said, "I did this," and then you couldn't even be upset with him, because you couldn't be upset, because it was clear if he wrote that program, he understood how prime numbers work. So there was no need for him to start to calculate by hand for 35 problems in a row. So he just wrote it, he did his homework, and he just went merrily on his way to do other children stuff on the winter holiday.
I I think that's how you can like persuade kids to code. You can automate your homework and you will have a full classroom of kids that want to learn how to code. That is a brilliant story.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think that's when it clicked to me that maybe we should put a lot more emphasis of why each sentence that we tell, each concept that we teach them will help them in the future, somewhere, one way or another. So, yeah, it was I'm very fond of that memory now, I think. And yeah, another angle we went about it was we really wanted everything to be informal. So there was like no raising your hand to go to the toilet. If you wanted to go out, you could go out. Usually there were parents waiting for them outside of the classroom. There was this, we didn't have too many fixed rules, but one of the fixed rules was that the parent had to be present there on the premises of all time, and also said parent was not allowed in the classroom with the children. So if they wanted to go have a grab of something to eat, they could go outside. They didn't have to ask permission or something like that. It was not school. It was informal. We were just friends, learning from each other. And I think also it's not on the slide, but I think also it helps them develop teamwork. It develops empathy. I think having 5 or 6 children sit at the table, learning stuff that's completely new to them, and this is something I think I'll talking about in the next slides. It encourages communication and collaboration. So it was not like in school when everybody sits in their own place and they interact. Maybe when there's a group project or something, it was always a group project. Always they could do. There were no constraints. We actually had a kid that once every 5 minutes would get up, run around the classroom, and then come sit back down. So yeah, everything was informal, and I think it really helped them relax, open their minds a little bit, because it wasn't easy for them to learn the concepts since it was something new. Maybe their minds weren't completely developed to accept this abstract concepts that we were teaching them: functions, variables, and if statements. If you do this, then do that. But I think in the end, all this informal environment really helped them get closer to their goal, and also ours. I think that was the slide on why we should teach kids how to code. There's going to be a little bit. There's going to be another section about this in the what works with children script slide towards the end. What methods we use and how we saw it work with them. But now I want to go into the juicy part. What's in it for us? The first one. It really makes you rethink everything you know. Imagine you learned the concept 15 years ago. You learned about what a variable is, and it's something you use every day. And you learned it 15 years ago, and for 14 years and counting, you didn't give it another thought. What is it? What is it? Why am I using it? How should I use it? And so on. And trying to explain these concepts to someone that has absolutely no formal education or formal experience in computer science, programming, and so on, it really helps us find the easiest explanation. I always said that every concept we explain should be explained as easily as easily, so that your grandma could understand it. And I was saying at the previous slide, think about all these abstract concepts that need to be somehow explained in. You have to take them from the abstract world and you have to bring them into the concrete world. You have to explain these technical concepts, but in a really non-technical way. And I think the best way you could do that is somehow find a series of mental hooks that make the children associate the, let's say, variable or function to something that they have in real life, or if not something they have in real life, something they could grasp. For example, we used to tell them that for variables, they could think of a stamp that has their name on it. They take this stamp and they put it on papers and in their notebooks, and then in their colleagues' notebooks, and so on and so forth. But this stamp has a little bit of a magical component. Let's say you could change the name on the stamp and you could put your colleague's name or your brother's name. But every time you change the name of the stamp, it also changes in the places you've already put the stamp. So if you put a stamp with your name on your notebook and on your colleague's notebook, and then you change the name to your teacher's name, for example, then magically on your notebook and your colleague's notebook, the name will also will also change. About improving our technical communication skills. Imagine you're in a meeting with a client and you have to explain something really, really complicated to them, but all you can think about is really technical concepts, and you want to sell the idea, sell the technical concept, explain what the technical concept is, why do you need it, and why it needs to be implemented like this, and then other stuff, cost benefits, and so on. And yeah, going back, you've been at it for 15 years. You've only did code. You only talked about technical concepts with other developers, and now boom, you're in a technical and management position, and you have to sell your technical concepts to people that have other backgrounds like marketing or other management peers. And talking to children and explaining concepts to them, rethinking everything you know, rethinking how you present your ideas. So you can think, so you're sure the other one understands, and also being able to quickly adapt the level of technicality in your speech depending on your target audience. And let's face it, if you want to like practice explaining technical concepts to people that are non-technical, children are the best. Like they don't have any technical experience. They didn't have time to acquire it, and also their reference system, the stuff you could reference is pretty narrow. So you have to find something. You have to struggle, and I think this actually boosts one's creativity a lot. It's like exercising your creativity. It's just think about it as in writing fantasy. It's basically the same exercise, just boosting your creativity by doing exercises for it. This is actually my favorite benefit. Getting people out of their comfort zone. I think if you stay inside your comfort zone, then you're really limited in what you can do, and also technically. So I think if you're really deep in your comfort zone, you're not gonna ever try a new programming language or a new programming technique, or I don't know whatever is new at the moment. And I think that really limits someone's skills if staying in their comfort zone. And working with children, hearing the questions they ask, you explain them something and then they ask you something that you would never ever have thought about. And then you listen to the question, you have to snap out of it, and once they amaze you with the question, then give them a relevant answer based on what they asked. And for me especially, this role brought me in a position in which I needed to recruit volunteers, somehow manage them, and also talk to the parents of the children, which was I think the most complicated part. Having to do something like developer relations, but for the developers that were working with the children. And I remember one episode in which we had a child that was simply not prepared to take the classes. He was 7 years old. He just got into school and he was learning how to write at the moment. And he would get bored really, really fast because he couldn't keep up with writing the code, applying concepts and everything, because he was just learning how to write. He was just learning his letters and everything. And we had to have a really long discussion with his father, telling him that he is not prepared, explaining why he was not prepared, and how when we think he should why we think he should not attend the class right now, and why we think he should when we think he should attend it. And I remember I was dreading that conversation. I wasn't sure how his father is going to take it. At the moment, it seemed that it meant a lot to him that his son was participating in those in that activity. But I think everything went okay in the end, and we found a solution, and he came back the next year more prepared. Yeah, going back to the 4 points, I think if you add these 4 points, yeah, making you rethink everything you know, helping you improve your communication skills, boosting your creativity, and most of all, getting you out of the comfort zone. I think teaching kids how to code makes us better mentors, and this is important. I think when someone is following a career in software engineering, web development, whatever field is related to that, because sooner or later you'll start working in a team, and you'll advance. You'll have to work with the junior developers. You'll have to mentor them, and you'll have to teach them how somebody else in the past potentially taught you. And maybe there are people that want to advance in their careers. They want to say, okay, I want to program for 20, 25 years, 30, and then I want to switch to a team lead or management role. And having all these skills, like these soft skills, and training your soft skill muscles like this, I think this will you will have a strong basis once you wanna advance in your career. And it's also about, maybe, okay, if you don't wanna go to a management position, it's also about talking to your colleagues when you have to decide which tool to use, if you want to decide if a solution is good or not, and what you get into a heated technical argument. We've all been there. I think it makes you it helps you better make your point, better and more successfully make your point. And last but not least, I think it helps with negotiation, which is good all around. The example I was just saying with negotiating the best solution with someone, or I don't know, maybe you're switching your jobs and you want to negotiate your salary. And once you're out of your comfort zone, you'll be able to better talk about your wants and your needs, and get better results for for yourself all around. So this concludes what's in it for us developers, the motivations and the reasons I think someone should go and teach the children how to code. And I was saying at the beginning that it's mutual, and the children are learning, they're developing these problem-solving skills, and they're learning how to code, and maybe they're just getting a glimpse of how a career in computers, in IT development would look like, and just talking to people that are actually doing this for a living maybe helps them focus their attention in the future towards a career in software, in development. Cool. Next up, a series of stuff that we noticed works with children, helps them assimilate information better, and helps them be more successful in going through the program. First one, I was talking a little bit earlier about the mental hooks, and yeah, you have to really take these abstract concepts and find metaphors or analogies and stuff they could grasp, so they can understand the concept. And once they understand the concept, then they can go and use it freely. So they're not using it just in the just where we say it, but also they can think of users themselves. I can think of some examples. We tried once doing HTML and CSS, and we were talking about the structure of an HTML page, and we were saying, okay, here's the page. Okay, here's there's this HTML tag, but look, this HTML tag. Of course, we explained what tags are beforehand. There's a head. See, think about it as a human. Here's the head of the human. Here's the rest of the body of the human. And think about it. In the head, you put the styling for the whole body, because when you dress up in the morning, you think with your head what you should wear, and then you take those clothes and you wear them, and then the head tells a lot of stuff about you. Gives other people information. People that talk to you gives them information about how about stuff that's characteristic to you. I already talked about the example with the metaphor for a variable. So I'm just going to jump into the next point. So this is 110% important. Children need instant gratification, and we learned that the hard way. Also teaching them how to do HTML. And this is important. The instant gratification part is really important, and this is something that the people that are building tools to help kids how to help kids learn programming. This is something they solved at the start. When we wanted to teach them HTML and CSS, we got everybody in the room and we said, okay, now we're going to download Notepad++. Now we're going to install it, open it, create a file called index.html, write this piece of code. We explain the code, write this, and then save it, load it in a browser, then do some editing, save it, refresh the browser, do some editing, save it, refresh the browser. And this whole setup we calculated took about an hour, I think, and that was like 58 minutes more than it takes for a child to lose interest in everything he sees. So they were really bored at the pause that was at the middle, and everybody was yawning, and I started playing Minecraft, which was actually a really big problem every time. And that's when we did two things. We decided that we're going to need to have some tools that offer instant gratification, that gives them results when they write some code. They need to see it exactly on the spot without having anything. And the second rule, they were not allowed to play any games if they did not write them themselves. So yeah, I think that was a really good learning experience, mostly for us at the start of the dojo. And this helped us, and I'm going to talk about it in the tools we use slides later. We helped us find and pick up some really nice tools that helped us along the way, and they're great for children and also good for adults that want to learn not only programming but maths and other concepts. And the third thing that we notice works with children is dialogue, because every child is unique. They have their own interests, and just sitting with them, I was saying that there was a mentor working with 4, 5, 6 children. Just that mentor sitting with them and asking them, what do you like? What's your favorite character? Do you like cars? Do you like apples? Do you like, I don't know, minions or whatever the characters from Minecraft are called? And getting their interests and then illustrating the concepts we are teaching them using their interests was something that really helped us get through to them. Imagine we were teaching them a tool, Khan Academy. It's a really nice website. I'm not going into details about it a little bit later. We're teaching them about Khan Academy, and Khan Academy has the basis of their computer science part of the website is that you can draw really quickly. They're using a Canvas implementation with an API that allows you to draw really quickly. And we use that as a basis for whatever we're going to do in the future. So we needed to teach them how to draw in Khan Academy. And we said, okay, here's a circle, here's a square, here's a rectangle, here's a triangle, and so on. But once we wanted to have them exercise these concepts, we said, okay, what do you like? Do you like minions? Okay, let's draw a minion. Or do you like trains? Let's draw a train let's draw a train, and then we'll animate. Let's draw a train, and we'll take it from there. And then we noticed that we could basically go take a concept and then have them take it further. For example, when we used to have this exercise with drawing, we saw that girls were more inclined on drawing something and then taking it further, making it more beautiful, and boys were like, okay, let's put this on the screen and I want to animate it, or I want to make it run, or make it take a sound, or anything. So we would just hook ourselves into those specific interests and help them. Yeah, we went with the flow, and everything was okay because they were learning. They were learning in their own sphere of interest, in their own pace, and everything. Okay, cool. And one thing was a really nice concept of CoderDojo. It encourages kids to teach kids. So it's only natural that some kids are going to understand something faster than others. And we would have them sit at round tables, and once someone understood something and once they implemented it once or twice, we would encourage them to go talk to the other children at sitting with them at the table, because yeah, let's be honest, we can try to explain and find metaphors and take something and package it something else, but we're never ever going to be able to explain it the same as someone their own age. They have their own we can say they have their own language when we're talking about this, and it's just that they have their own system, their own reference system. That means they're going to be more successful when they teach each other, and that we noticed had them be happier, more motivated. And there was this small competition of understanding stuff, but if somebody understood faster, they were happy to go and exhibit their new knowledge to their colleagues, and then the colleagues were motivated to pay more attention next time, and so on. And I think I forgot the word. There was like the opposite of a vicious cycle. I forgot how it's called. So it was this good leading to good, leading to better situation. And of course, also for children, it developed their creativity, because they would go and they would explain it with their own words, and they would say, see that the other kid didn't understand it quite right, and then they would say, how else could I explain that? And I say, aha, think about that character in Minecraft that goes and kicks everything with a hammer. I was like, okay, I understand. And then, better socializing and sharing skills. Again, something we try to, somehow we try to differentiate ourselves from the schools. Children were also teachers. So, and in the end, we would see groups of friends forming, and there were children that never saw each other before the classes, and then they came and they were really good friends, and they discovered they have mutual interests just by talking about imagine, just by talking about technical stuff, you find out you like the same Barbie dolls or yes. So I sound really old. I have no idea what children are up to right now. I mean, but you would,
Video games and mobile phones, I think.
those damn computers.
Yeah.
So, basically the same. Some of the same stuff that applies to us developers that work with children. It was also boosting some skills for the children themselves. So it was it's a really nice space for children. I hope the emphasis of why it's important to teach children how to code, even if they're not going to get into programming or into I don't know, any other IT related job careers. I think it's clear why we should go and teach them, show them, help them discover this. Which leads me to the next point. When can you start? Yeah, my son is going to turn 4 years. He's going to be 4 years old next month, so I cannot wait to buy this for him. We had some prerequisites for the club, for the CoderDojo club, since we were doing some pretty tame mathematical stuff. You needed to have basic arithmetic skills. You needed to put 1 and 1 together, and then of course you really need to know how to read and write. So we mostly limited our attendance to children that were older than 7 or 8 years old, or 8 years. So even though we work with children that were a little bit older, that doesn't mean you cannot start earlier. If you have children of your own, or if you want to start a programming club for toddlers, there are solutions. This is Robot Turtles. I think this was the first board game that was supposed to help children not learn programming concepts, but create a base of logical thinking, of logical operations, encountering bugs, debugging. It was created by a guy called Dan Shapiro, I think. He used to work at Google. He quit his job and he did a Kickstarter campaign to launch a board game, to create and launch a board game that would help children of starting with 4 years of age learn some basic concepts. And he did the Kickstarter. He wanted 25,000, I think, and in about a month he made $630,000 dollars, which allowed him to mass produce this board game. So I don't remember the specifics right now. I'm going to buy it, I promise, next month. And if you, I'll do a live demo if anybody wants. But I think you have some diamonds on the board, and there's some frogs, and you just draw cards, and the cards say something like "if this then that," or "advance one," or "go back one." And then you're in a puddle, and it's like, oh my god, what happened? You're in a puddle. How do you solve this? And the challenge, I need to reverse. I need to somehow debug it. So it does not mention any programming concepts. Just building a base of them thinking, okay, logical thinking, problem solving, how I should follow steps. The frog does exactly what I tell it to do. If I tell the frog to go one left, it goes one left. So just some basis, and then once the child is a little bit older, you can skip into other more interesting stuff like Scratch. Scratch was created at MIT a lot of years ago, and it's basically what is called as a visual programming language, I think, or block-based programming language. You start working with actual programming concepts. You have variables, functions, control statements, like if and you have conditional statements, repeating these loops. You can add. The only catch is that you do not write any actual code. You just have blocks of code which you combine to get your end result. And it's quite powerful as a programming language. It may not look like much. It may look just like a toy, but I think you can do a lot of things with it. And I remember we had a contest once between children, and there was a girl that did the whole game with levels and everything, with scoring. It was something Pac-Man-like, if I remember correctly. It was completely written in Scratch using these blocks, which you see on the screen, just by dragging and dropping them. I think like recently, 2 or 3 years ago, they got a new version out, which works offline. You can load it on your desktop. And I think if you this is interesting, if you take a look at the classes at Stanford, the introduction in computer science at Stanford, the first class they take, they have to do a program in Scratch. So they don't have to be able to write any code yet, but they need to start playing with the concepts of programming, and they do that in Scratch. So you just take the nasty part of writing code, and still have a full programming language. This is good for children starting from 6 years old, because they don't have to be really careful when they're writing code. They don't have to see if they missed a parenthesis or if they've put all the parameters in a function and so on. And it does some really cool stuff for you. You just say, for example, the loops are repeat X times, and you just put the number X, there is 4 or 5 or whatever you need, and they repeat it for you. So it's really easy for small children to use. Next up, Khan Academy. This is our tool of choice, which we use for children older than 8, in which you finally get to write some real code. You can see on the left, and this was a lollipop example we did with the children. So they could learn. I think this was towards the end of the first year. See, there's variables, there's functions like the draw lollipop functions. There's a for statement, and then also there's ifs. There's an if in the draw lollipop function, and also something that was really interesting to teach them the random part of where to draw the lollipop. If you can see, the lollipops are drawn at random positions, but if they're in the upper part of the screen, they're red, and then in the lower part they're green. And what's really good for Khan Academy is that once you wrote something on the left, it's immediately available on the right. You don't have to switch to anything else. You don't have to press save or anything. You don't have to press run. It runs automatically, and you have instant feedback. And most importantly, you have instant gratification. Once you did something right, you get your result immediately, and then you can feel good about yourself and jump into the next step of the program. And Khan Academy is amazing. It really just needs someone to create an account, and then you're free to go. And then you can organize your students into classes, and you can see what everybody has done in their own accounts. They can publish, they can share between each other, they can vote their programs. So it has also this social component. And it's not only limited to computer science. It has a lot of other fields. It has mathematics. I think there's a really popular class right now for animation, held or sponsored by Pixar. So it's a really good learning environment if you're not only a child but also an adult. As programming languages go, if you want to go into programming languages, I think Python is the best, because the syntax is simple and permissive. It allows you to do a lot of stuff with, and there's not a lot of room for error once you start writing Python. So whenever someone asked me to ask me about what programming language they should start with, real programming language, not Khan Academy or something, I always told them, go to Python. It's the easiest, and it will give you anything you need. Also, I've noticed that a lot of kids, they were really passionate about playing games. So when they were really passionate about playing games, they were also really passionate about writing games. So Pygame really want to fill that gap. So you could use Python and Pygame to successfully teach children the basics. But the disadvantage is there's a long setup or tedious setup to get everything running, Python and Pygame, and then you kind of lose that instant gratification loop. You don't see the results immediately. You have to at the least refresh. If you're running this in a web page, or you either have to refresh or build your program. And last but not least, there's another platform which is similar to Khan Academy. It's called Codecademy, and it basically does what Khan Academy does with JavaScript, but for HTML, CSS, and I think they also have PHP and Python. And it's the same format. It takes, you write code on the left, and then you have your result immediately on the right. And you don't get out of that instant gratification loop, and you immediately see results for what you did, or you immediately see mistakes if you did something wrong. And I think they also have a really nice debugger to give you hints. So that's kind of about it regarding programming languages and tools. And back to the last slide. I was saying at the start that CoderDojo is really amazing, that it's an open source concept and anybody could start their own programming club if they wanted. There's a lot of information at CoderDojo.com. You can go there and read the wiki to get a sense of what's going on. And I must say the community is amazing. And apart from that, there are yearly events for CoderDojo. They get together once a year in Dublin for something called CoderDojo Plus projects, in which children from all around Europe get together to showcase what they worked in the past year, and then they compete against each other for prizes. And I've seen some really nice projects there, robotics and full-fledged applications, and children that were 12 years old, but they were already thinking about how to solve social problems using technology. So I think it's amazing how they enable everything. There's a foundation, an actual foundation in Dublin that has people that are working there full time trying to develop the movement all across the world. So yeah, if you want to get involved, if you want to go start a programming club, or even better, if you want to join a programming club, I'm pretty sure every club there's always a need for volunteers. You can go on CoderDojo. There's a find a dojo link there, which takes you to a map. Put in your city and see if there's already a dojo around you. And I can say probably there is a dojo around you. For example, I think in London there are tens of dojos. I lost count. There were in 2014 there were about 20 just in London, and the number kept growing. So yeah, just find one, see where it is, see if you can get involved, and then yeah, just go.
Awesome.
Just go there, see if it's something for you, and maybe take it further. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you so much, Viorel. You have actually shed some light on so many benefits of teaching kids to code that I would never have even realized. So I guess the social benefits, for example, is something that I'd never really considered. I'm also surprised at the conversion rate of the amount of people or the amount of kids that you're teaching to those that actually become programmers. But I'm totally convinced that it's absolutely worth, drawing out that 1%, because like you said, the other benefits that they take from that, probably in the future of their lives, later in their careers, they might consider, what they learn, or maybe exploring more about what they learn in programming, and applying that in so many other transferable ways. So there's actually way more to this than I had, even thought to think about, if you know what I mean. There's just so many benefits there. So the thing I'm curious about is the kind of amount of time that it takes from you. What do you have to invest as a volunteer? Is this something that most people can quite easily do as a hobby, or is volunteering as a teacher something that requires perhaps a higher degree of commitment than like a weekend or an evening hobby?
Well, it does depend on how much you want to get involved. For example, there are certain levels when organizing a dojo. There is something called an organizer, which does the logistics. Maybe there are sponsors that can give you a place to host your dojo, and maybe there's equipment and so on and so forth. And there's someone that takes care of these relationships. And there's someone called the champion that basically is there to make sure that there are volunteers and there are children coming, and then they have what to talk about, and then they can be kept engaged for time to come. And then there are the volunteers that only come there when dojo is taking place. For example, our was only at the start was only once a month on the last Saturday of the month, And I could say that the organizer spent, I think, 6 or 8 hours a month on this. The champion spent about 20 hours per month, and then the volunteers would just have to be there for the actual class that was 3 hours every Saturday, once a month. So it depends on how much you wanna invest in it, how much time you want to invest in it.
So it could be as small as a few hours one day a month is all someone really needs to contribute to potentially make quite a big difference.
Yep.
Well, I think that will persuade more people to get involved in this kind of thing. So, why did you start teaching? How did you end up being like a co-founding member of one of the first dojos in Romania?
It's actually funny. So just want to say I love my job right now. I love what I'm doing, and I think it's really great. And I think it's for me what I want to do for many years, starting from now. But the problem is that I almost missed on that opportunity. So I was finishing high school. I wasn't decided where to go. I was like fiddling with programming, but I also was into a lot into PR and communications, and I wanted to go. I had no idea where to go in that direction. And in Bucharest, in Romania, actually, basically all schools have computer science classes. Just that there are not too many qualified teachers. And while I was in high school, even though we had a really good schedule for learning programming, I had 6 teachers in 4 years, and nobody was interested in investing time in helping us develop. So I quickly lost interest in programming. Basically, yeah, I was young, naive. There was nobody to guide me, and I lost interest in programming. And then I decided to follow my other passion about PR and communication. And I went to study PR and communication as in college, but I had the bad luck or the good luck, I think, to have to pay tuition for my classes. So I had to get a job to pay tuition for my classes, and I was like, I played a little bit with programming. So well, I went and I got a job. I remember right now it was paying about 200 euros per month for 8 hours a day, and one thing led to another, and I think once I finished college, finished and got my bachelor degree, I was actually pretty knee deep into programming, and I switched back. I switched to for my master's degree. I switched to something more relevant, and then I've been at it ever since. So I was thinking that this lack of mentoring almost made me not follow this career, which I currently love, and I was committed of not letting that happen to other people.
So it's kind of like a personal story for you. You know, you almost lost out on the career you have, and I guess you teaching is going to, make sure that doesn't happen to other people. It will get more people into programming.
Yeah, and that's why I was thinking that 3 or 4 kids that would follow this career was a really good outcome. It was like more than 0. Probably maybe there were kids that would have never had the opportunity to follow it otherwise. And then yeah, if I have 3 kids, then amazing. I did my job.
Okay, so to me, it's been a long time since I finished school. So my perception of programming is that it's still something that is stimulated and grown by the community of programmers. It's down to programmers to grow the community of engineers. But do you feel, and have you noticed that national education systems are playing a bigger role in teaching kids? Is programming soon to become a fundamental subject like maths, science, history, geography, and programming?
Actually certain that will happen, and hopefully in the near future. for some years now, the European Union and the United States, they've started doing some some forward seeing, and they've noticed that they're going to have jobs that will require technical skills, programming skills, and there will be more and more jobs, but the universities or schools aren't adapting really fast, so they could cover the gap. And I think there was a study from the European Union from a couple of years ago saying that at least 90% of the jobs in 2019, so next year, will require computer skills to be done. I'm going to look search for the study. We can put it in the description of the video. And I think also the United States had a study that they're going to be missing a couple of 100,000 IT workers also by a year, like 2020 to 2021. So I think that governments will start investing really well into this field, starting with younger children to teach them computer literacy, and then really going towards more technical, heavier technical programs like teaching programming, algorithmics in school, and similar stuff. And also, I hope having better sponsoring colleges, or having them accept more students to increase the number of people with formal IT education that are going to enter the working field in the future.
I find it bizarre that this is not such a core subject in like middle school, or I think middle school is the general term across most of the world. That programming is a subject in itself, because just some of those stats that you reeled off, like 90% of jobs in the USA requiring computer skills. It makes total sense for this to be like a state supported or nationally supported subject. So people like you so far are filling the gap, and without people like you giving up their time, maybe programming would suffer. So you're, I guess, a pillar of growing this community. And I'm curious to know how easy it is, teaching kids to code. Is it a difficult thing to do?
Well, first of all, it's terrifying. You go. I remember the first classes. You go there and you're like really hopeful, and then you go and you see like 30 small faces looking at you, waiting for you to teach them something, and then I didn't know what to say. Well, you don't know how to start, how to grab, and then you start saying stuff, but you're saying stuff in your language, and like and it's getting harder and harder. But I think once it clicks, once it passes a certain threshold, then it gets easier. But I do remember every Saturday after classes, I would get home exhausted. So it was only 3 hours with the kids, but I was exhausted, really, really tired, couldn't do anything else for the rest of the day. So, but I also remember it was a pleasant kind of exhaustion, because I don't think, do you run? Do you know, after finishing a half marathon or something like that, you're like really exhausted, but you're really happy you did it, because you have this really good feeling, this release of endorphins that make you feel really good. So I think that I can compare it. Yeah, like running half a marathon was working with kids was like running half a marathon.
So this is maybe a surprise for some people to hear, that teaching kids to code could be a great challenge for people to take up. In my mind, it's quite simple. I feel like you would be teaching very simple things, and it would be quite easy, like an easy thing to do. But actually, if it's not easy and it's tough, then people love a challenge. People are always looking for a new challenge. So maybe teaching kids to code would be a worthwhile hobby for a lot of people, because like you said, it must be enormously satisfying to do something as potentially scary, daunting, difficult, stressful. Do it, come home, and know that you've done a good thing, and the world may be a better place for it. 20, 30 years time, you could be the people that inspire young kids who grow into do amazing things. So I mean, I'm sure it's worth any stress or concerns or worries that you might have before you do it. So I was also interested to hear that you said teaching has made you like a better programmer. Like there are things you have gained from teaching people. So has it had an effect on your career, do you think? Have you actually kind of come from teaching kids and then gone back into the office on a Monday morning and thought, hang on, why am I doing what I'm doing?
I can't put a finger on a revealing moment like this, but I think the changes were gradual. I think at some point I noticed something. For example, uh, uh, yeah, this is your field of expertise. Getting a new job. I remember I was more open talking to people in interviews and explaining what I do and what I like about my job, what I would like for another job, and negotiating with them. So this is just a concrete example that I think I was more open to talk to people that I don't know. So I was more willing to get out of my comfort zone. And in regards to day-to-day tasks, I think it had improved my relations with my colleagues because I've been able to talk to them better, express myself better to them, understand them better, which is really, really important. And once you establish this kind of relationship, you can only go up from there.
So teaching has actually given you some valuable, I don't know, like personal skills or interpersonal skills that maybe you might have found, but maybe later in your career or later in your life. So I guess it sounds like it's given you like a confidence boost,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly putting my finger on it. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So I guess from a selfish point of view, there's good reasons to teach, not just to teach, that you will gain from it probably in very unexpected ways by taking on the responsibility of teaching other people and doing something that maybe is out of your own comfort zone, like you said earlier. So you talked about the classes being a few hours on a Saturday. Those are the individual classes, but I'm wondering how long, and I know there's no one answer for this, but how long does it take young kids, like the 7 or 8-year-olds that can already read and write, to start to grasp the basics of programming? I mean, are you taking these kids on for a year-long period, or what's the timescales typically?
Um, Personally, for this dojo we organized, it was 1 year. It was a 1 year period, in which we wanted to cover, and I can tell you exactly what we covered. So the basic concepts of how to write a program, that you write stuff and your computer interprets them literally, and then they get displayed on the screen somehow. And then go into variables, functions, conditional operators like ifs, loops, and then packaging a program, doing it end to end. So if you come to think about it, it's not much, but I think it was the perfect measure for kids in a year, not a year. It was without the summer vacation, so 10 months, maybe 9 months of once a month, 3 hours. I think we managed to properly grasp. They managed to properly grasp these concepts exactly.
Okay, so a reasonable commitment from the kids themselves and the parents to to get them to really try this. It's not just there's probably not going to be gains from coming to one session. If you're a parent taking your child to one session and then never coming back, it's worth sticking with multiple sessions and doing it consistently.
Yeah. Also, we made ourselves available outside of the classes, so they had our full contact information, so they could ask us. And we had kids that would contact us. And then we had kids that would there was something like a homework saying, okay, you need to practice this concept because X and Y. And there were kids that were I think we had 2 or 3 of them that would start messaging us on Facebook on Friday evening, trying to get us to give them the answers for the homework. We always made an emphasis: this is not homework. This is something you take away to practice at home. Of course, you don't have to do it because it's not a homework, but we really recommend that you do it so you're successful next time you come here.
Okay, nice. So for anyone watching this who might be considering using the CoderDojo community to teach their own children or their local community of kids in their local school, is this like a free resource to teach people, or what's the the average cost of going through a program like this?
There should be no cost. All the information is publicly available. The cost, I think, consists of having a place to meet with the children. But I've noticed that the people are more than willing to give you that. If you talk to universities, schools, libraries, companies, especially IT companies, they're more than willing to give you a meeting room to meet with the children, or a smaller room. For example, at Telecom, we had the training center all to ourselves. And since they didn't have any trainings on Saturday, we could use 2 or 3 or 4 training rooms with training desks, whiteboards, projector. With the projectors, they even give us some laptops at one point so the children could work on them. So once you get this problem with the where to host your dojo, and you can even host it in your living room if you have enough space. I don't think there's too much cost involved. That's why it's I think it's volunteer based. And throughout the years, we had people asking, "Why don't you do this for money?" And the answer was always because it defeats the purpose of what CoderDojo is and what CoderDojo wants to do for children.
Well, that's brilliant. There's like really few reasons not to at least try this out as a parent. And I think hearing you talk about how you've done it, giving some insight into what teaching kids looks like, maybe some good tools to do it, I hope will help stimulate more volunteers coming forward and giving up their Saturdays or a few hours a week to not necessarily just CoderDojo, but any coding, coaching, mentoring program that will support like kids locally to them. It's hopefully inspiring for a few people to watch. So I cannot thank you enough, Viorel, for spending your time to share this with people. There's going to be people that watch this as a recording, and I just want to let everyone know it's now 9:30 in the evening in Europe, and after a full day's work, Viorel's home giving us his time, sharing this stuff with everyone. So that's the kind of guy he is. He just keeps on giving. So thanks so much for your time. We're going to put a link somewhere below in this video to places like CoderDojo. If Viorel, you're open to having people reach out to you, maybe over Twitter or LinkedIn, just asking you questions about this, we'll include links to your profile as well. And I just hope that this kind of thing gets more attention and more people follow not exactly your steps, but get involved and contribute like you have in your spare time, because there's just so many benefits to kids and also to the people that are doing the volunteer work. So I think that kind of concludes our late night Google Hangout. So again, thanks so much, Viorel, for your time, and maybe you'll be on one of these again soon. Let's see what the response is like.
Also, thank you, Jimmy, for the opportunity, for giving me this platform to preach the word.
No problem. Look, you said it gave you a degree of self-confidence speaking to people that you didn't know earlier, and now there's going to be thousands of people that you don't know that I'm sure are going to want to talk to you as well. So it's come around full circle, I guess. So yeah, this is it. We're going to stop the broadcast now. So thanks so much for anyone that's watching this live or the recording. Please reach out to either Viorel or myself at Darwin Recruitment, and we can talk about this more at some point. But for now, thank you everyone, and good night.
Good night.